Hi, my name's Rachel McLeod. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and an emotional wellness coach. And today we're going to be talking about the topic, three indicators that an emotional wound is limiting you right now. Okay, this is an area where so many people don't know that it's an emotional wound, right? They're like, okay, I have a problem. Gosh, I'm so this. I don't do that. They have no idea that underneath the bottom of that stack and underneath the bottom of that behavior is actually an emotional wound. And so, if we treat that, if we resolve that issue, which takes sometimes 20 minutes, sometimes 40 minutes, sometimes a week, depending on the complexity of the issue, everything resolves. All of a sudden, people are able to move forward in their life very powerfully, sometimes very subtly, but still very powerfully. And so I want to tell you what this is because one of the biggest indicators for success is your awareness. Do you have awareness of what the problem really is? If you don't have awareness, likely you don't have any intentional power to create change, right? That doesn't mean change can't happen, right? Things occur spontaneously all the time, but we have a lot of intentional power that we can use to heal, to get moving forward if we just know what we're looking for. And there's tons of ways to build skills here, and there's tons of ways to heal emotional wounds. So whether you're fascinated and want to know all the details, or like, oh my gosh, just make it stop, and you you work with somebody to help you with that, doesn't matter, heal. Okay, so let me talk to you about those. And this is important because some people, when you don't have the right understanding of the problem, you do things in hopes that you're solving the problem, but you don't really know. And when we do this, we can keep the problem untreated, unaddressed for a long time, and we're trying hard to resolve it. Right? That's really frustrating and depleting. And so the sooner we can get to the root of the issue, we're winning. Like, for instance, when you understand that it's an emotional wound that's holding you back, then you're looking to create emotional health. You need to do some emotional health building, right? And that's like there's a negative and you want to bring it to at least neutral, right? There's other strategies that are mental strength training, right? So that's when you're taking a positive, a neutral at least, and you're making it greater, right? If an emotional wound is present, before we do any building of muscle, of strength, we need to do healing, right? And so a little bit of healing makes all that mental training, mental toughness, or mental strength training all that much better. And so doing the right thing at the right time. We don't want to take somebody with a broken leg and start strength training yet. I mean, it's not my field of expertise, but it sounds like a bad idea from here. And so I think you get what I'm putting down over here. So these are three of the things. There are so many more, but I wanted to make this as digestible as possible. And so the first indicator that you've got an emotional wound limiting you right now is that your recovery time after a trigger, after a mistake, after an event is long and painful, right? If you have that going on, and I'm going to talk about what you might see in that space, but let's say you have an event that takes place and it takes you 6 years to try again. That there's an emotional wound in there. Let's say I work with athletes and as well, and let's say they're going up to hit a ball and it goes completely out, and they feel humiliated and overwhelmed, and they are in their head for three more games, three more matches, three more sets, right? That means that the incident occurred and the between was long, right? The painful piece in here is that a lot of times what will happen is that let's take the athlete who's hitting a ball, hit it out, and now maybe they're feeling humiliated. And humiliation is just swirling, or shame, or discouragement, disheartened, disappointed, and it's just consuming them, right? This is evidence of an emotional wound is there. This is not typically how things. This is we don't want to see that pain showing up here. There is a wound present. Um, and not that we don't want to see it. We don't want to see it, but it happens. And if it's happening, it's a wound. It just needs to heal. These things heal very quickly. Um, Another thing that people might notice in the time, the space of recovery, because really the brain's job is to take an event and to convert it very quickly into growth. And brains need to be able to go through a process of examining the situation, breaking it down, using the energy in this to convert the energy into usable, healthy forms, right? Shame, it would need to quickly work through that. Some systems don't process shame, right, very well. And so it crashes the system, making this time longer. And the brain struggles to create growth with that event because the emotion in the space is too great. A lot of times, right, the pain isn't actually from the timeline, right? You're hitting a ball, it goes out. That's not a big deal to anybody, but somewhere within your system, there's a wound there that your brain is associating with this event, and it's activating the pain and shame and disappointment, emotional distress from that timeline. That's called a flashback. Right, so we're actually doing a fun volleyball event. I work with volleyball athletes a lot. We're doing a fun volleyball athlete event. We're having a good time. We hit the ball out, and now we're in agonizing misery, right? And then our teammates are like, whoa, what's going on? Like, no big deal. Everybody present sees that this is not a big deal, except for that system. The person who hit it out, their system is laying on top of this situation. Stuff from an old emotional wound, emotional baggage, right? Things the system hasn't been able to process yet. And because brains are always trying to throw the past onto the present. That's why we want our stuff processed and resolved already, so that when we go to these things, we're not falling into wounded spots. Our wounds are not limiting us and holding us down. And that's really frustrated, especially in the athlete world. We don't understand what we're seeing in our teammates and in our players, or even in our coaches. We don't know that we're seeing emotional wounds. In our coworkers, when they get a negative review and they spiral for months, right? When we have somebody that has a painful conversation in the family, and they're out for weeks, they're silent for weeks, they're giving you the silent treatment. We don't know that we're seeing emotional wounds. Right, we think they're being wimp. They won't let it go. But we have this whole list of things that we're seeing from them, and the truth is, they're experiencing emotional wounding right there, and their brain has not healed it yet. And if it was going to heal already, it would have. And so it's just kind of stuck in the processor in a loop for a while, and then you'll see people withdraw. You'll see people really have to pull away from the event to hopefully switch gears and go to a different track in their mind that does not have a wound there. And that can be really difficult. And so, but what happens is they'll go back to the situation, hit the ball out again, and the wound is activated again. And now it takes a long time to recover, right? And so there's a lot that goes into that, and that can really hold us back because we don't want to be wounded. We don't want to spiral out like that. So then we can begin to avoid those situations entirely, and that limits us. And the other piece is that to gain mastery in any of the skills we want that are part of just humans, we grow in skill and we have dreams that we want and desires to fulfill. And a lot of times we have to build the skill to go do that. To build skills, we have to use them. We have to practice. But if our system is avoiding practicing, if we're limited by this wound because we don't want to do it because the wound will throw us into a world of pain, right? Now we're missing out on repetitions. We're missing out on the amount of trials and error, the amount of data we can collect about that situation and interaction. Right? And so we're actually slowing ourselves down from getting all of the information, the exercise, the practice we need to build that skill. And so that holds us back. And so skill development is slow. And so what we really want to be able to see is that something occurs, you hit the ball out, you go try to have a conversation, didn't work so fabulously, and then you go try again. We want to see you get up and get back in the game. We want you to get up and try again. right? And that's not in force, not in hurting yourself, not in, we want it to be natural. We want it to be almost even seamless. Sometimes there's a little step of faith, but not like your whole system's holding you back and you're fighting your system to, come on, let's go do this. And it's like, no, right? No, it's saying there's a wound here. Don't do it. Right. So there's that. Let me see. So also we'll have these pain spirals afterwards. I have a diagram of this that I've been showing clients. It's in development, but it's like there's a triggering event here, and we can tell emotional health with the triggering event and how long it takes the brain to create growth and wellness and growth out of it. But in the beginning, a lot of times let's say, I had a client who made a mistake, and I can't remember the details. I want to use mine on my own. I made a mistake at work several years ago when I was employed by not my own business. And I hit a spiral. Like I dipped down. Oh my gosh, this thing took me weeks to recover from, right? I was having flashbacks. I was spiraling down. And so it took me a really long time. And if the deeper that we get to like existential crisis, like maybe I don't deserve to live, I'm an awful person, I'm the worst, right? That would be like pretty deep, a deep fall. We're falling out into the depths, right? The more deeply you fall there, the less control you have, right? You're just spiraling. You're just lost in the sea of pain. And then there's strategies for this. Please get them. I'll talk about those at the end of this, but because this is a really great healing place. Therapeutically, this little spot is fabulous. I love hate it when my clients get in them, but they're in the inner world. We need to find them, and right in here, the brain needs to clean that wound out and then build all the connective pieces up so that when we do that again, the brain is like, oh, I've got this, and we can go. It's kind of like I liken it to like a little trampoline spot. After a mistake, can you jump on it, or do you fall all the way to the basement? Or maybe you get stuck just a little bit and then your brain kicks up and you and your brain, you rock and roll and you get going and it's just a little dip. Can we get progress? Really, that's really what we want to see. Can we get progress? And then pretty soon it will be seamless. And that's that your brain created health and wellness and healthy new ways of being in that spot. So instead of going there and falling out, you can go there and jump around and your brain is like, yes, and you're watching mental health take place and propelling you forward with growth and expansion and mastery, which is natural to brains. So those are the types of that's the one indicator. Okay, let's go to number 2. The second indicator that the emotional wound is present is poor self-care. Gosh, when my mom passed away, did I learn this? And that was an emotional wound, right? Losing a parent is very wounding, and we need to heal from this. And we're going to see the effects of emotional wounding. And you might notice these things as well. And there are some of these wounds that have been around since the beginning of time for us, that are early childhood wounds. These wounds would be called attachment wounding, where we actually have wounds to our attachment to our caregiver. Like maybe mom was mentally ill or unavailable. Maybe dad was mentally ill, unavailable, or maybe a parent had alcoholism, or maybe somebody had a physical illness, or if a parent was in a car accident when they were little. They just were not available, and that closeness bond either broke, was injured, or never formed fully. And those spots where it never formed are very painful still. Our system needs to still build them. It has everything it needs to build them, but we will feel them as wounds, and those are attachment wounds. Um, those are different than something like what happened to me with my mom passing away 3 years ago. That was a recent wound, right? We get emotional wounds as we live. It's just like we get physical wounds as we live. I mean, I don't know how many of you have bumped into a corner of your desk or your bed and, bumped your leg and got a bruise. These things happen. And we want to see them heal, and sometimes bigger things happen and we want them to heal. We're designed to heal. So but when these things happen, what you will see, one of the things that you'll see is challenges with self-care. We can see things like people aren't showering, they're not washing their clothes, we'll might see things like they're not holding boundaries. Maybe they're letting people run all over their boundaries. Maybe they're not saying no when they need to say no. Maybe they're not saying yes when they need to say yes. Maybe they need to say yes to taking their animal physical self out on a walk. They're saying no. Maybe they're caring for others, over caring for others, and so that there's no room to even care for themselves. We'll see self-neglect. We'll see avoidance of pleasure. We'll see not enough friend time or too much friend time, not enough alone time, too much alone time, right? We're not accurately caring for the self. We're not finding that sweet spot where self is being cared for. And maybe we're just always available. Maybe we're not shutting down. So we're not withdrawing and saying, hey, the shop's closed for self-care, like we need to. So those are some signs that we're just not. If my neighbors are leaving, you might hear them, you might not. But those are emotional wounds in there. You They need to be treated. They need to be addressed. We don't want to just move over to strength training. There are wounds there. And so if you go to strength training, you might find that you can keep moving, but you might find that your brain still tries to get in there and it knows you need to heal. So it will keep going back. It'll keep going into there, and you just find yourself falling back. And why do I keep falling back? The work is not done. If their brain wants to get in there and do more healing. The third indicator of an emotional wound is present is avoidance. So this might be avoidance of conversations. This might be avoidance of connection. This might be avoidance of events, of tasks, right? Now, procrastination, I need to do this, but I'm avoiding it. That's also emotional wound is in there. I do that with people a lot, where they're procrastinating. I'm like, let's find that. Let's find the wound in there. And maybe people are avoiding risk taking. I work with business owners that need to go live. They need to be visible, and they don't want to be seen. But they want to be seen, but they don't want to be seen. But there's an emotional wound in there, right? And so we really want to do that healing. And so, yeah, and it could be small things like avoiding paying your bills on time, or avoiding organizing an area, or cleaning up, doing your chores, avoiding people, right? Places, avoiding emotions. I try not to feel too excited, right? I avoid that. There's an emotional wound in there, right? And people do try to avoid the positive emotions as well because of emotional wounding. So there's all these little places that you can find emotional wounding and heal. And not that we need to be there. There really is a time to be emotional wound hunting. If you've got anxiety, depression, traumatic stress, if you got a disorder, that's really all your brain wants to do. That's why there are so many symptoms. Your brain is trying to run the healing functions, and it's stuck and it keeps going. And so you've got more and more symptoms because that healing function is not working, and your brain is just activating pain processing processes that can't complete. And so that leaves you with tons of pain, and then depression, and all the things that come along with too much pain in your system. So, gosh, I wanted to say something else. What was I going to say? Avoidance, emotional wounds. Gosh. So, but what's really great is, okay, Also, if you're another great time to go emotional wound hunting is if you have maxed out your performance and you're just kind of stuck. And a lot of times, if you're somebody that's in a maxing out performance, um, the wound is more subtle. Sometimes it's instead of it being a whole memory that is full of pain. Like for instance, something that I just worked on personally, and I saw a lot of growth afterwards was um, I've worked on my grandpa when he passed away, but it was really blacked out after that, right? Repressed memories back there. And those, I was doing some stuff and I was noticing that I couldn't get any further. And so I was just kind of like, what's up with that? And so I was just using my interventions, just pondering the issue. And little by little, it started coming through that a lot of what was limiting me was the emotional distress and pain after he passed away, returning home. My grandma going to her house, my mother going to her room, me being in my room alone, being disconnected. I previously was full of support. In that moment, there was none, right? And so as I started to work through that, which I had never done before, it was a piece of the puzzle that just never occurred to me. Um, and so it was just time for that. I was running into it, and then as I healed the emotional wounding in there, and then as it's been healing and repairing, I've watched that. I like to watch that for my inner world. I'm like, I see you, brain, go ahead. um, then I also noticed that in real time I'm getting more clear. I'm This area of my life I'm held back in is becoming like it's resolving. I'm finding new ways of dealing with it. I'm not collapsing in front of it. It's just I'm getting my brain is creating mastery. I'm healing an emotional wound so I can actually build the strength to reach that, to fulfill to build the skills and actually do the thing that I want to do. Right. And so sometimes when we're doing high performance stuff, emotional wounds still play a role. And they're a lot easier to heal if you've already been doing this work. Or if you're somebody that doesn't have a lot of complex trauma, if you're just in here and I'm just trying to take my business to another step, another place, and I'm stuck. Probably an emotional wound in there. So it's worth the time to do a session or two, figure out what that is, and get it processed so that you're free to move forward. So, those are the three indicators of emotional wounds. And so, if you've got any of those three things going on, it takes you a long time to recover after a mistake or something triggering. You've got poor self care or you've got avoidance going on. That's places where you can really do some healing and thrive and and open up your options and expand. Also, one of the benefits is you reconnect with parts of yourself that were buried in pain. Really, I think that's the best way to say that. So yes, those are the three things. I hope that gives you insight. I hope that you can look at your life and start to be like, I think okay, that makes more sense. Look at this. This is also helpful because you are not the problem. You are never the problem. You are not lazy. All the titles that may have been given to you, they are not accurate. There is an emotional wound there. And if we were all experts in emotional wounding, we would all be able to say, "Oh, I think you got a wound there," instead of saying, "You're lazy." And this changes our parenting paradigm, right? When I see my kids doing something and not doing things, I'm like, wonder what's going on there. A lot of times they're still processing grandma's passing, right? There's wounds here and we get to heal, and healing sometimes looks like tons of growth and sometimes a little bit backwards. We're taking steps back, we're relapsing, right? But when we understand where we're at, we can really do the right thing and then support, and then there's all this growth afterwards. We brains, when we get painful wounds like this processed, we grow. Post-traumatic growth. People who are processing old trauma grow because all of those events that took place are actually brain food, where that the brain uses to build healthy teeth and bones, right? healthy muscles and all the things that we need emotionally. All of our emotional strength. These events, no matter how awful they are, Brains are designed to take that and convert that into your health, wellness, expansion, dreams, goals, dream life, most fulfilling experiences. And that's a wild statement. I'm happy to back that up. I have in other lives that I've done, other videos. So it is you, and you can ask people that have healed emotional wounds if you are skeptical, which I love that. I love that skepticism. It's awesome. You should be able to quantify the healing. You should be able to see it, not trust that it's there. You should be able to watch it work, watch it perform. So anyway, a couple of things. One, I like to, the very first thing I do with people that I know we're going to be doing emotional wound work is I like to get them trained in how to help the brain heal wounds. I like to give them very basic training, and then I like to build their skills all the way out. As big as skills as they need, I want to give them that and help them use it and practice and do this healing work. So I offer a free training where I teach 3 of my favorite interventions that help the brain do its healing work. Excuse me. Those are available. I put that in the comments above. It's called Interventions for Inner World Transformation. You are absolutely with these tools assisting your brain right in the place it needs the help for your brain to complete its healing work. Instead of the brain trying and it failing and looping, you're actually supporting the brain to complete the process. And so you can do that with the emotional wounds. You can find your emotional wound and you can use these interventions to get the brain to finally be able to heal in that spot and get that growth that you want. I also offer a training called Inner World Transformation, where I teach you the actual strategies to do very, very deep, broad, and strategic and thorough healing. I guide you through a very step-by-step process. I give you the exercises to do, when to do them, how to do them, the guidelines, keep you safe and advancing and thriving in the program. And so that's also available if you would like to do an 8-week course on healing your inner world and healing the emotional wounds. That's really what this program is about. What it also teaches you to do is how to also do the mental and emotional strength training. So there's going to be things in there that you want to build for the first time, or maybe rebuild. They got broke. And so this program also teaches you how to do that at the same time. So heal the wound and build the health and the wealth, emotional wealth. Yeah. And abundance. And then another opportunity that's available is if you want me to look with you personally at one of your emotional wounds, and you want to work with me one-on-one for a session or 2 or 3 or 20, you can sign up for your first session with me on my website, at rachelmccloud.com, and we can have a look and do some work. Okay. All right. So I'm going to jump off. It was wonderful talking with you. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and comment. Leave them here. I am watching. I will respond to them. And happy healing. Heal those wounds. Take care. Bye.